Imagine you are lying in the snow, bleeding out, while the 3-day-old daughter in your arms grows quiet. Your husband's family has just shoved you down a flight of stone stairs during a blizzard. They called you garbage, trash, a nobody. But they had no idea that in 4 hours you would inherit $2.3 billion, and you were going to make every last one of them regret it. My name is Emma Harrington, and this is not a work of fiction. This is the real story of how I went from dying in a snowbank to bringing down an entire dynasty. It is about how a family who believed they were untouchable learned the lesson of their lives. Never underestimate the woman you decide to throw away. For 3 years, they humiliated me, broadcast my most vulnerable moments to their 500,000 followers, and even tried to steal my child using a corrupt legal system. They believed their money and influence made them gods. They were wrong. Because when I strode into that boardroom 8 weeks later, with platinum blonde hair, a billion-dollar empire at my back, and 4 million people watching live, the look on their faces when they realized who I truly was, that moment alone made it all worthwhile. But what made it legendary was this. They had signed a consent form without reading the fine print, just as they had once forced me to do. Karma, it turns out, has a wonderful sense of humor. You need to stay with me until the very end, because the twist in the courtroom, the FBI showing up, and what ultimately happened to each of them, you will not believe how this story concludes. And if anyone has ever made you feel worthless, if you have ever been cast aside, then this story is for you. Before we start, please do me a quick favor. If you believe in justice, hit that like button right now. Leave a comment telling me what you would have done in my shoes, and make sure to subscribe. The story I have for you next week is even more unbelievable than this one. Trust me, you do not want to miss it. Now, let me take you back to the very beginning. This story will teach you one powerful truth. Your darkest moment does not define you. It refines you. If you have ever been thrown away, belittled, or told you were nothing, stay until the very end, because this is not just entertainment. This is a blueprint for reclaiming your power. It was February 14th, Valentine's Day, the day my entire world fell apart. They dragged me across the marble floors, my 3-day-old daughter screaming in my arms, and then threw us down the stone steps and into a blizzard. What they did not know was that in just 4 hours I would inherit $2.3 billion, and I planned to make every single one of them pay for what they did. My name is Emma Harrington, and this is the story of how I went from bleeding out in the snow to destroying an entire family dynasty. You must stay until the end, because the footage of them realizing who I was in that boardroom went viral and completely ruined them. You do not want to miss the moment 4 million people watched them beg. Let's go back to where it all began. 3 days earlier, I was in a hospital bed at Mercy General. My body was still trying to heal from an emergency C-section. The pain was excruciating, a searing line across my stomach that flared with every single breath. But absolutely nothing could compare to the deep ache of emptiness I felt. My husband, Michael, had not come to see me in 52 hours. Not a single time. I had been keeping track. The nurses kept shooting me these sympathetic glances, their voices dropping to whispers whenever they thought I was out of earshot. I kept telling myself he was just swamped with work and that he would be there soon. God, I was so foolish. It was February 14th, Valentine's Day. The bitter irony was not lost on me. My baby, Grace, was sleeping in the bassinet next to my bed, her tiny face tinged with the slight yellow of jaundice. The doctor assured me it was normal and nothing to be concerned about. But every time I looked at her, a knot of fear tightened in my chest. She was so tiny, so delicate, and so perfect. And her own father had not even bothered to come meet her. I was still attached to intravenous drips in both of my arms and was still using a catheter. The pain from the incision was a steady 7 out of 10, even with the Percocet they gave me every 4 hours. Every small movement felt like agony. At around 11 p.m., my best friend Rebecca quietly entered the room. She worked in the intensive care unit downstairs and had been checking in on me whenever she had a break. "Emma, honey," Rebecca said, her voice strained with an emotion I could not quite place. She looked genuinely worried, not just offering polite sympathy. "I have to show you something. Please try not to freak out. But you have to see this before you hear it from someone else." She passed me her phone. It was already open to Instagram. I stared down at the screen, and my entire world shattered into a million tiny pieces, right there in that sterile hospital bed. It was Michael's account. It was a picture of him with another woman. She was stunning, absolutely radiant, and also very clearly pregnant. Her hand was resting on her stomach in that classic pose of an expecting mother. They were dining at Le Bernardin, a 5-star restaurant I could only dream of, a place Michael had certainly never taken me. The caption underneath the photo said, "With my real family, finally being honest, new beginnings, and blessed with the true." It had been posted 6 hours ago. 47,000 people had liked it. The comments were a chaotic mix of congratulations and utter confusion. "Wait, aren't you married?" one person asked. "Who is the other woman?" another person wrote. But the majority of the comments were just heart emojis and people celebrating his truth. I felt as though someone had reached directly into my chest and squeezed my heart until it stopped beating. "Emma," Rebecca said gently, "it gets worse. He's been telling everyone at the hospital that you trapped him into marriage, and that he is finally free to be with the woman he truly loves." 3 years. We had been married for 3 years. I had spent 3 years trying so desperately to be good enough for him, for his family, and for their world. 3 years of my love and my loyalty, and all that time, he had another woman. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was a call from an unknown number. I was too heartbroken to even think about answering it, too completely shattered. I let it ring until it went to voicemail, barely noticing that the caller ID had briefly shown the name W. Harrington, private. I would never find out that my grandfather had tried to call me at 11:47 p.m. that night to schedule our very first meeting. I would never realize just how close I had been to being saved. Just then, Dr. Morrison came into the room holding my discharge papers. She was the obstetrician who had delivered Grace, a kind woman in her 50s with a gentle touch and worried eyes. "Mrs. Sterling," she began cautiously, "I need to talk to you about something. The hospital's social services have flagged some concerning issues. Your husband has not visited, and there has been some—" The door was suddenly thrown open with a loud bang. Victoria Sterling, my mother-in-law, was the first to enter. She was wearing a designer coat that likely cost more than my car, with a Hermes bag hanging from her arm and a look of pure fury in her eyes. Following her was Jonathan, Michael's father, dressed in an expensive suit that just screamed old money and influence. Then came Madison, Michael's sister, who already had her phone out and was recording. And last was Alexis, the woman from the Instagram picture. She wore a smug smile, with one hand placed protectively on her pregnant belly, as if she were staking a claim. Dr. Morrison stepped in front of them. "I am sorry, but visiting hours are over, and Mrs. Sterling needs her rest." Victoria simply waved a dismissive hand at her. "We are family. We have every right to be here." She then shoved a folder into Dr. Morrison's hands. "These are documents from Child Protective Services. My daughter-in-law is mentally unstable and an unfit mother. We are here to protect our granddaughter." I just stared at them, completely unable to understand what was happening. Child Protective Services documents. What? The folder was filled with forged papers that claimed I was suffering from postpartum psychosis, including a fake psychiatric report from a Dr. Gerald Rothman, the Sterling family's personal psychiatrist. The report recommended the immediate temporary removal of my child from my custody pending a full evaluation. Dr. Morrison's hands trembled as she read through the documents. I could see the conflict on her face. She knew this was wrong, but was powerless against them. Hospital legal had been called. The Sterling family's large donation to the new East Wing gave them immense power here. Victoria walked over to my bedside. Her voice was like poison. You have ruined my son's life for long enough. This whole pathetic act ends tonight. I was weak, disoriented, and still groggy from the pain medication. What are you talking about? I just had his baby. Alexis let out a short, cruel laugh. She stepped forward and pulled a set of papers out of her purse. That baby is not even his. We had a DNA test done. She held out what looked like fake laboratory results. Probability of paternity, 0%. My head was spinning. When? How could that be possible? I had been in the hospital this whole time. You cannot test a newborn's DNA without the mother's permission, I protested. But they had papers, official-looking papers that said they had. Madison began live streaming the entire scene on Instagram. I could see myself on her phone screen, looking pale and broken in a hospital gown. Hey everyone, Madison said in a cheerful but cruel voice. You all wanted to know the truth about my brother's gold-digging wife? Well, here it is, coming to you live from the hospital where she is trying to trap him with a baby that is not even his. I watched in utter horror as the comments started pouring in. Oh my God, is this for real? She looks so pathetic. Your brother deserves so much better. 500,000 of her followers were watching me at the absolute lowest point of my life. Victoria leaned in close to me. Let me tell you what you really are, Emma. You are a joke. You are a bet my son and his college friends made for $100,000 to see if he could marry the poorest girl on campus and actually tolerate it for 3 years. She took out her phone and played a video. It was Michael, drunk at his bachelor party 4 years ago, laughing with a group of 7 friends. Dude, 3 years with some trailer trash for $100,000? That is easy money. I will just close my eyes and pretend she is someone else when we... The sound of laughter, so much cruel laughter, filled the room. My world completely fell apart. 3 years. Every I love you, every anniversary, celebration, every single time I had tried so hard to fit into his world and be worthy of the Sterling name. It was all just a joke. Madison's eyes fell on my wrist, on the simple silver chain bracelet with a tiny charm that had belonged to my mother. It was the only thing I had left of her. Oh, what is this? Madison sneered. Your precious family heirloom? She reached out to snatch it from my wrist. I quickly pulled my arm back, and a sharp pain shot through my abdomen. Do not touch that. It is all I have from my mother. Victoria then slapped me, hard across the face. The sharp sound echoed through the silent hospital room. Dr. Morrison audibly gasped and said, That is assault. I am calling security. Jonathan's voice was ice cold as he replied, We are security. This is Harrington Memorial Hospital. My family funded the entire East Wing. Feel free to call anyone you like. The irony was that they had no idea the hospital was actually named for my grandfather. They were making threats against me inside my own family's institution. Just then, Rebecca stormed into the room demanding, What in the world is happening in here? When hospital security showed up, they were visibly confused. Jonathan's major donations gave him clout, and the guards were unsure how to proceed. Victoria shoved divorce papers into my hands. You will sign these this instant, or Child Protective Services will take your baby first thing in the morning. We have medical professionals who will swear you are mentally unstable. You will never lay eyes on her again. I was disoriented from pain medication, terrified, and in searing agony from my surgical incision. The entire room felt like it was spinning. Please, I pleaded. I'm begging you, please do not take my baby from me. My hand trembled so violently that I could hardly grip the pen, but somehow I signed the papers. Alexis leaned down close, her hot breath on my ear as she whispered, "Did you honestly believe a person like you could ever keep a sterling child? You are a nobody. You will always be a nobody." Victoria offered a cold, victorious smile and announced, "You are discharged. You may come to the estate tomorrow to pick up your garbage. After that, you will be gone for good." And with that, they were gone. I completely fell apart, my body racked with sobs. Rebecca held me tightly and said, "We are going to call the police. This is blatant harassment and coercion." "No," I whispered back. "They have an army of lawyers and endless money. I have absolutely nothing. I just need to know my baby is safe." That is when Dr. Morrison took out her personal cell phone. I had not realized she was recording the entire confrontation. I was not aware that she was a mandated reporter who took her responsibilities with the utmost seriousness. "I am documenting all of this," she said in a low voice. "What they are doing is abuse." I was too shattered to even process it. "It won't make a difference," I mumbled. "People like them always win." But her actions would make a very big difference later on. I just could not see it at the time. The following morning, on February 15th, I hailed an Uber to go to the Sterling Estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. Michael had maintained complete control of our finances throughout our marriage, so I could not even afford a car of my own. My baby, Grace, was in a standard-issue hospital car seat, covered with only a thin blanket. She was so tiny and fragile, just 3 days old, and her world was already shattering around her. The mansion rose up before us, a massive example of Georgian architecture that seemed to shout its old money status from every pillar and pane of glass. I had spent 3 years of my life there, and it had never once felt like home. My keys still worked when I let myself in through the huge front doors. The household staff, whom I had once believed to be kind, now refused to make eye contact. A few of them even had smirks on their faces. I discovered that all of my possessions had already been packed and dumped in the driveway inside garbage bags, as if they were trash. My hand was shaking as I made my way to my room, which was not the master suite. Michael and I had never shared a bedroom. I had always been relegated to the servants' quarters in the back of the house, a constant reminder that I was not truly part of the family. Inside, everything had been destroyed. My clothing was soaked through with water from the fountain outside, completely ruined. My books were torn to pieces, their pages scattered across the floor. The photographs of my mother had been incinerated in the downstairs fireplace. I could still smell the lingering scent of ash. All of my mother's jewelry was missing. I found Madison in the master bedroom, actually wearing it, including my mother's pearl necklace, the one possession I cherished more than anything else in the world. "Oh, this old thing?" Madison said with a laugh as she snapped a selfie. "It looks much better on me, don't you think? Finders keepers." As I made my final walk through that mansion, I was ambushed by memories. The first Thanksgiving, Victoria had forced me to serve all the guests while the rest of the family ate. When I made a move to sit down, she said, "The help does not eat with the family, dear." Michael did not say a word. During a charity gala, in my second year, I had to wear a borrowed dress because I had no money to buy one of my own. Victoria warned me not to embarrass them and to stay in the back. Do not speak to anyone of importance. Jonathan made me work the coat check room, while Madison mingled in expensive designer gowns. Then, on my third Christmas, the Sterlings exchanged gifts that were worth thousands of dollars. Michael's gift to me was a vacuum cleaner. The entire family laughed. Victoria remarked, "Well, at least now you will be useful." It had been 3 years of carefully planned humiliation. I gathered what little was left of my life into a single small bag. Grace began to cry, needing a diaper change and a feeding, but there was nowhere for me to care for her. Just before I could escape, Victoria's voice crackled through the intercom system. "Emma, darling, please come to the main hall. Immediately. We are all waiting for you." A sense of dread washed over me. The main entrance hall was enormous, with marble floors that I had been made to scrub on my hands and knees, and a crystal chandelier that was worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. The entire Sterling family was gathered there, arranged like a royal court. Victoria was at the center, the queen presiding over her subjects. Jonathan stood next to her, the king. Madison was on the staircase, her phone already out and recording. Michael was leaning against a far wall, unable to even look in my direction, and Alexis was hanging on Michael's arm, wearing that same triumphant smirk. 4 security guards I did not recognize stood nearby, large men who were clearly hired muscle. Victoria's voice was sharp and cold. "Before you disappear and we erase any memory of your existence, you will get on your knees and apologize for wasting 3 years of our lives and for trying to trap my son with a bastard child." I clutched Grace even tighter. "No," I said firmly. "I am leaving. Let me pass." Jonathan's threat was spoken softly but carried a deadly weight. "You will kneel, or we will ensure that every single homeless shelter in Connecticut is aware that you are an unstable child abuser. Child Protective Services will hunt you down." "I am not kneeling," I repeated. Victoria simply nodded at the security guards. Everything that happened next was a blur. A guard seized my arms. I screamed, "Please, I am holding my baby. Please do not hurt her." Another guard brutally tore Grace from my arms. The pain was instant and unbearable. The force of the struggle ripped my C-section stitches open. I felt a warm, wet sensation spreading through my clothes. It was blood. Grace was letting out that high-pitched scream unique to newborns. It was a cry of pure distress, of absolute terror. Madison was live-streaming the entire event. "This is what happens when gold diggers try to mess with the wrong family," she narrated. "Watch karma unfold in real time." A flood of comments poured in. "She is getting what she deserves. Throw her out on the street. Fake baby mama." 500,000 people were watching my complete and utter destruction. The guards began to drag me across the hard marble floor. I was too weak to put up a fight, still recovering from major surgery and growing dizzy from the blood loss. My shoulder slammed into the corner of a marble column with a sickening crack. A burst of pain shot through my arm. I thought it might be dislocated. My bracelet snagged on the sharp marble edge. The charm snapped off and went skittering across the floor. A maid quickly scooped it up and put it in her pocket. I did not realize then how important she would become later. I was bleeding, screaming, and begging for mercy. Alexis just stood there and laughed. "This is just so pathetic, Michael. Is this really what you wasted 3 years of your life on?" Michael's voice was hollow and lifeless. "Just get her out of the house." He lacked even the basic decency to show any remorse. When they got to the massive oak front doors, they threw them open. A full-blown blizzard was raging outside. The temperature was 15 degrees Fahrenheit, but the wind chill made it feel like -5. The snow was coming down so hard you could not see more than 10 feet in front of you. The wind howled like a furious, living creature. They threw me down the stone steps. I tried to curl into a ball to protect myself, but I hit the ground hard, tumbling down 5 steps. Each impact was agonizing. My injured shoulder bore the brunt of the fall. I landed in a heap in the snow at the bottom, my blood turning the white ground a horrifying red. My bag was tossed out after me, its contents scattering everywhere. Medication, diapers, one single change of clothes, everything I owned in the world. Then, a security guard carelessly tossed Grace down at me. I just barely managed to catch her, pulling her close to my chest to shield her from the brutal cold. Madison yelled from the doorway, "Do not even think about coming back, or we will have you arrested for trespassing. Say goodbye to your fake baby." Victoria's final words sliced through the howling wind. "This is exactly where garbage belongs." The heavy door slammed shut, with a final boom that seemed to echo down the empty street. I just sat there, in the freezing snow, covered in blood, with a dislocated shoulder and a torn C-section incision. Grace's cries were growing fainter, which was far more terrifying than her screaming had been. My phone had been shattered in the fall. I had no money, no coat, just a thin hospital cardigan, and no proper shoes, only hospital slippers that were already soaked. In that moment, I truly believed that Grace and I were going to die there. "I am so sorry, my sweet baby girl," I whispered, tucking her further inside my cardigan to share what little body heat I had left. "Mommy tried so hard. I am so sorry." Then Grace fell silent. That silence scared me more than anything else. Babies do not go quiet in the freezing cold unless something is terribly wrong. "Please do not leave me," I begged her tiny, still body. "Please, you are all that I have." My vision began to swim. The hypothermia was starting to take hold. I could feel my own body beginning to shut down. I closed my eyes, feeling myself start to let go. And then I saw them. Headlights, cutting through the thick wall of snow. 3 black Mercedes SUVs materialized like ghosts out of the blizzard. The SUVs pulled to a stop directly in front of me. Their doors swung open before the vehicles had even fully stopped moving. An elderly gentleman in a flawless Tom Ford suit stepped out, holding an umbrella over his head. Even at 3:47 in the morning during a blizzard, he looked as if he had just stepped out of a corporate boardroom. "Miss Emma Catherine Morgan," he said. "Thank God we have found you." I could hardly form words. "How? Who are you?" He knelt down in the snow right next to me, completely ruining what must have been a $3,000 suit. He did not seem to notice or care. "Your grandfather sent me," he explained. "We must get you both to safety immediately." Behind him, a team of paramedics in Harrington Global Medical uniforms was rushing toward us, carrying heated blankets and a full array of medical equipment. "Grandfather?" I managed to say. "My mother's father passed away before I was even born. I do not have a—" "Yes, you do," he interrupted gently. "His name is William James Harrington, and we need to transport you to the Harrington Medical Center this instant. Your daughter is approximately 10 minutes away from critical hypothermia." The paramedics moved with practiced, professional speed. They wrapped both Grace and me in heated blankets. They started an IV line in my arm because I was severely dehydrated and gave Grace oxygen because her breathing had become shallow. Someone stabilized my shoulder while others applied pressure bandages to stop the bleeding. They carefully loaded us into one of the warm SUVs. The warmth inside the truck was a shock after the biting cold. An older gentleman, whose name I would soon discover was Richard Blackwell, sat with us, his eyes scanning the blizzard as he watched over everything. The drivers handled the SUV with an unnerving calm, as if the storm was nothing more than a light rain. Richard was on his phone, his voice steady and efficient. He said, "Dr. Anderson, our estimated time of arrival is 8 minutes. I have a 28-year-old woman, 3 days post C-section, with active bleeding and a possible shoulder dislocation. She has moderate hypothermia. I also have a 3-day-old infant in critical condition with severe hypothermia. Please prepare the neonatal intensive care unit and a trauma team." A paramedic was taking Grace's temperature. 94.5, he said softly. "We have to warm her up gradually. A newborn's normal temperature is between 97 and 99. If she dropped to 93, her organs would start to fail. I could only watch them care for my daughter, too drained to feel anything but a fragile trust in these strangers who came out of nowhere." We pulled up to the Harrington Private Medical Center at 4:15 a.m. This place was nothing like Mercy General, where I had given birth. It was on a completely different level. This was a private hospital designed for the extremely wealthy, featuring polished marble floors, original art on the walls, and patient rooms that resembled luxury hotel suites. Grace was immediately taken to the neonatal intensive care unit. A team of 6 specialists surrounded her instantly, initiating warming protocols and monitoring every vital sign with precision and care. Dr. Anderson, the head pediatrician, spoke to me while his team worked. "You brought her in at the last possible moment. Another 5 minutes, and she likely would have suffered permanent damage." I was then moved to a private suite that felt more like a room at the Four Seasons Hotel. They put my dislocated shoulder back in place, which was agonizing but essential, and then they carefully re-stitched my C-section incision. They started me on a blood transfusion, an intravenous drip, and antibiotics, since the combination of exposure and open wounds created a severe risk of infection. They gave me pain medication that actually worked. I finally woke up 7 hours later, at 11 a.m., to sunlight pouring through the massive windows. For a fleeting second, I thought the whole thing had been a horrible nightmare. But then I saw my bandaged shoulder, the intravenous lines in my arm, and all the medical machines. A wave of panic washed over me. "Grace, where is my baby?" Just then, Dr. Morrison, the same obstetrician from Mercy General, walked into the room. "Emma, you need to breathe. Grace is stable. She's in the neonatal intensive care unit under constant observation. She is going to be all right." I was stunned. "What are you doing here? How did you know?" "Mr. Blackwell called me," he explained. "He told me what happened. I resigned from Mercy General this morning. I could not continue to work for a hospital that would let that happen to you." A moment later, Rebecca burst in, carefully wrapping me in a hug while tears streamed down her face. "Oh my gosh, Emma. I tried calling you all morning, and when you did not answer, I drove to the Sterling mansion. I saw the bloodstains in the snow. I thought the worst." She began to sob. "I am okay," I reassured her. "We are both okay." Richard Blackwell then entered the room, holding a leather portfolio. "Ladies, if you would excuse us. I need to speak with Emma privately. What I have to share with her is highly confidential." Rebecca and Dr. Morrison left, though they seemed reluctant to go. Richard moved a chair next to my bed. A nurse brought Grace into the room in a rolling neonatal bassinet. She was still connected to monitors, but she was stable. Seeing my baby alive and safe made me start crying all over again. "Emma," Richard started, "your mother's name, before she became Catherine Morgan, was Catherine Harrington. Your grandfather was William James Harrington. He was the founder and chief executive officer of Harrington Global Industries." He showed me a photograph of an older man with kind eyes but an undeniable air of authority. I had never seen his face before. My mother never spoke about her family. She always told me they were all dead. Richard began to tell me the story. My mother ran away from home when she was 19 after a huge argument with her father about my dad, James Morgan. William was convinced that James was only using her for the family money. It turned out he was right. But Catherine was stubborn and fiercely proud. She left home with nothing, changed her last name, moved to Ohio, and worked 3 jobs to raise me by herself after my father left us when I was 2. Her pride stopped her from ever contacting her family. And William's pride stopped him from apologizing. They were 2 stubborn people who loved each other dearly but could not overcome their own egos. When my mother died in a car accident 5 years ago, William was heartbroken. He had been keeping track of her for years, always watching from a distance, but never making contact. After her death, he began searching for me. "He found you 2 years ago," Richard said, "just after your wedding, to Michael Sterling." My breath caught in my throat. "For the last 2 years, William watched over you. He had a security team following you and cameras monitoring the Sterling property. He witnessed everything they put you through." Richard then showed me the video evidence. There was Victoria forcing me to serve drinks at her parties, Jonathan treating me like an unpaid servant, Madison's constant cruelties, and Michael's cold neglect. It was all there. "Why did he not help me?" My voice cracked. Richard explained that William was desperate to step in, but his legal team, myself included, urged him to wait. "We had to construct an airtight legal shield for your inheritance, ensuring the Sterlings could never claim you married Michael with any knowledge of the money. This way, they would have no grounds to contest the will. We were building a trust that would protect you from everyone. The original plan was for William to introduce himself to you on the day after you gave birth, which was February 15th, today. That blocked call I got last night?" I asked in a whisper. Richard nodded. "That was William. He was on a flight back from London. He was calling to let you know he would be at the hospital this morning to finally meet you." Richard's voice trembled, the first crack in his professional composure. His plane landed at 6 a.m. He went directly to his car. I called him to set the exact time for the meeting. He asked me how you were. I had to tell him you had been discharged and we could not find you. The GPS tracker showed your location at the Sterling mansion. A GPS tracker? The bracelet. Your mother's bracelet. The one you have worn every single day for years. William had a medical-grade GPS chip installed inside the charm. It was waterproof, had a 5-year battery, and included heat sensors. I instinctively touched my wrist. The bracelet was gone. The charm must have broken off and gotten lost in the snow. That is how we located you. At 3 a.m., the heat sensor sent out an alert, indicating that the subject was entering a hypothermic state. I called William right away to tell him you were in immediate danger. He pulled up the live security feed we had installed on the Sterling estate. Richard turned his tablet toward me, and I saw it all. The entire assault, Madison live streaming it, me being dragged out and thrown down the steps, the blood on the snow, Grace on the verge of death, all of it time-stamped. William watched that video at 7:05 a.m., sitting in his car. Richard's voice broke completely. At 7 a.m., his driver called me in a panic. William had collapsed. It was a massive heart attack. The paramedics arrived at 7:21. He was declared dead at 7 a.m. The devastating irony of it all felt like a physical blow. Emma, think about this. When they tossed you down those stairs at 3 a.m., you were nobody. You were exactly what they called you: poor, powerless, and disposable. But just 4 hours later, at 7 a.m., the very moment William's death was legally recorded, you became the sole heir to a $2.3 billion empire. They left you for dead in the snow when you had nothing. But as you lay on that frozen ground, the clock was ticking down to 7 a.m. when you would become a billionaire. They just had no idea. I stared at him, my mind unable to grasp it all. Your grandfather's last moments were spent watching them torture you, knowing he was about to give you the power to destroy them all. Richard then gave me an envelope. The handwriting on the thick paper was William's. I read the letter through my tears. My dearest Emma, if you are reading this letter, it means I am gone. I am so sorry that I waited too long. I was on my way home to finally meet you, to tell you how sorry I am for failing your mother, for not finding you earlier, and for standing by while that family hurt you. I wanted the legal protections to be perfect first. I wanted to guarantee that no one could ever steal what I am giving to you, but I should have focused on protecting you instead. I saw the security footage this morning. Watching them throw you and your baby Grace into the snow made me realize I had made a terrible mistake. Seeing that literally broke my heart. But I can still protect you, even in death. Everything I have built is now yours. $2.3 billion, 40 companies, and properties in 18 countries, it all belongs to you now. Take this empire. Show them what it really means to be a Harrington. Never let anyone make you bow your head again. Make them pay for every single bruise, for every tear, and for every second they made you feel like you were worthless. You are not garbage. You are my granddaughter. You are more powerful than you can possibly imagine, and I am so sorry. I will not be there to watch you rise. With all my love, Grandfather William. I clutched the letter to my chest and sobbed. Grace slept peacefully in her bassinet next to me, finally safe. The trust is already active, Richard informed me. Everything is transferred to you immediately. There will be no probate court and no delays. The estate taxes have been accounted for, and the board of directors has been briefed. Emma, as of 8 a.m. this morning, you are the chairwoman of Harrington Global Industries, and the Sterling family is completely unaware. I looked up at him, my face still wet with tears, but something new was taking hold in my eyes, something cold and hard as steel. Tell me everything about their businesses, I said. I want to know every vulnerability, every single weakness. A small smile touched Richard's lips for the first time. Now you are starting to sound just like your grandfather. The following day, February 16th, I was in a wheelchair inside the private conference room at Harrington Global. My body was still healing, but I had to understand the empire I now commanded. Grace was right beside me in a designer stroller, looked after by a member of the Harrington medical staff. She was healthy and strong now. The jaundice was gone, and her skin had a healthy pink glow. Richard presented me with several leather-bound files on the Sterling family. Sterling Industries is drowning in catastrophic debt, he began. $83 million in total. He showed me the financial statements. Jonathan had embezzled $12 million from the employee pension fund to finance his lifestyle. His failed business deals had cost the company another $31 million. On top of that, they had $40 million in outstanding operating loans. Sterling Industries was just 3 months away from complete bankruptcy if they could not secure new capital. Richard informed me that Jonathan had applied for a $75 million contract with Harrington Global the previous month. It was a government defense contract where we acted as the intermediary. This contract represented their only chance for survival, and we had full control over whether they received it. Or rather, I had control. I was the CEO. Next, Richard presented the file on Victoria. Her passion project, Sterling Style Boutiques, had 5 locations throughout Connecticut and Manhattan, all situated in buildings owned by Harrington. Richard pointed out that their leases were due for renewal in just 47 days. She was also $480,000 behind on her rent payments. But then came the most damaging piece of information. She had been underreporting her income to the IRS. We possessed proof of $2.3 million in tax evasion. Can we report her? I asked. The anonymous tip is already drafted, he replied, just waiting for your approval. At that point, private investigator James Crawford came forward with Madison's file. Madison Sterling, who was 32 years old, claimed to be 26 on all of her public profiles. He placed her driver's license next to a screenshot of her Instagram biography. The birth dates were not the same. She had undergone extensive plastic surgery, none of which she had disclosed. A rhinoplasty in 2019, breast augmentation in 2020, and continuous treatments like cheek fillers, Botox, and lip injections. She also had a Brazilian butt lift in 2021. Her modeling contract with the prestige agency explicitly stated that any undisclosed procedures were grounds for termination. Who owns the prestige agency? I inquired. Richard smiled. As of yesterday, you are the owner. Harrington Global acquired it 2 weeks ago. Madison is not aware of this yet. Michael's file was the next one. The college bet was meticulously documented. It was all in a group chat that had 8 participants. Not one of them was intelligent enough to delete it. Brad Miller, who was 23, had typed, "Dude, no way you last 3 years married to that broke chick." Michael Sterling replied, $100,000 says I can. Easiest money ever. Another person, Lord Chad Morrison, asked, what if she finds out? Michael Sterling's response was, she will not. She is too stupid and desperate to question anything. There was also video evidence. It was the complete version of the bachelor party footage Victoria had previously shown me. In this version, Michael was talking about closing his eyes and pretending I was Alexis, while everyone else laughed. Michael had also embezzled $3.8 million from Sterling Industries to finance his lifestyle with Alexis. Crawford added, Jonathan is aware of it, but covered it up because it is family. Finally, we came to Alexis Beaumont, but that was not her real name. Her name is Alexandra Marie Thompson, Crawford stated, displaying her mugshot from California, taken in 2019. She was a professional con artist with 3 documented cases. In case 1, from 2018, she was engaged to Richard Pemberton, a millionaire from the tech industry. She faked a pregnancy, stole $400,000, and then disappeared just before the supposed miscarriage. In case 2, from 2020, she was engaged to David Collins, a hedge fund manager. She faked a pregnancy again, stole $650,000, and then vanished. In case 3, from 2021, she was engaged to Marcus Whitmore, a pharmaceutical executive. She faked another pregnancy, but was caught before she could get any money. A warrant was issued. She is currently wanted in California on charges of fraud, bail jumping, identity theft, and wire fraud. The pregnancy she claimed with Michael is also a fake. We traced the ultrasound image. She purchased it from a dark web forum for $200. Does Michael know about any of this? I asked. Not yet. I considered the situation. If I exposed Alexis right now, Michael would gain sympathy. People would see him as a poor man who was fooled by a con artist. Richard looked impressed. You are learning quickly. We decided to save the information about Alexis for later, when its reveal would inflict the most damage. Over the next 8 weeks, I went through a complete transformation. The first week focused on my physical recovery and learning business fundamentals. I had physical therapy for my shoulder and my C-section, and I learned to hold grace while reading quarterly reports. Richard taught me how to interpret financial statements. I attended board meetings in silence, just observing and learning about every division of Harrington Global. In the second week, I truly became a businesswoman. I received an MBA crash course from Harrington executives, studied the vulnerabilities of Sterling Industries, took extensive notes, and asked sharp questions that left the executives impressed. I delivered my first solo presentation to the board, which was about the tech division. I completely crushed it. The third week was dedicated to my physical transformation. I went shopping for designer clothes, including Tom Ford suits, Armani blazers, and Louboutin heels. My hair was changed from a soft brown to a sleek platinum blonde with balayage. I took professional makeup lessons and received media training to improve my voice, posture, and commanding presence. Stand like you own the room, my coach instructed, because you do. During the fourth week, I learned about power. I enrolled in self-defense classes, specifically Krav Maga. I promised myself I would never feel helpless again. I participated in negotiation workshops with Richard and had meetings with company lawyers, learning how to legally destroy someone. I practiced my boardroom face in the mirror until it was cold, powerful, and unbreakable. In weeks 5 and 6, the strategic moves were set in motion. Harrington Global quietly acquired the debt of Sterling Industries from 15 different creditors. A shell company was used to purchase the modeling agency that Madison worked for. We brought in forensic accountants to conduct an audit of the boutiques owned by Victoria and prepared comprehensive evidence packages for the IRS. The seventh week was all about setting the trap. I worked with the graphics team to prepare my boardroom presentation. I forced myself to watch the footage of my own assault, which was recovered from the Sterling Estates security system, thanks to the maid who had taken my bracelet charm. She came forward after Emma paid her $50,000 for the charm and the footage she had secretly captured on her phone. We began leaking anonymous information about Madison to gossip blogs and scheduled the formal business meeting with Jonathan. During the 8th week, we made our final preparations. I practiced my boardroom speech repeatedly in front of the mirror. Grace was now 2 months old, healthy and happy, and being cared for by a team of professional nannies. I stood there in my full power suit. My platinum hair was styled perfectly, and my red lipstick was applied with precision. I gazed into the mirror and hardly recognized the woman who was staring back at me. "Let's destroy them," I said. The meeting was scheduled for April 12th. They had absolutely no idea who they were about to come up against. On April 2nd, just 10 days before the boardroom meeting, Madison was still posting on Instagram daily. She was on a beach vacation in Turks and Caicos, which was funded by her parents. Her caption read, 26 and living my best life, blessed natural beauty, no filter. She had 486,000 followers. The comments were filled with people praising how perfect she was. Madison felt completely invincible. I called her from my old phone number, the one she still had saved in her contacts. She answered the phone laughing. I could hear Alexis and Victoria in the background. "Oh my God, the trash is calling me. Let me put you on speaker. Emma, how is life in whatever gutter you're living in? Did you find a homeless shelter that will take babies?" I kept my voice quiet and broken, acting my part. "I just wanted to know if you would reconsider the CPS case. Please, I miss Grace so much." The CPS case had actually been dropped during week 1 because there was no evidence, but Madison was cruel enough to pretend it was still active. "Oh, honey, CPS did not want your baby either. You are such a pathetic mother. But hey, at least the wedding of Michael and Alexis is happening next month. You are invited to watch it from the servants' entrance." There was cackling laughter. Victoria yelled in the background, "Tell her we already forgot she existed." Alexis added, "Tell her Michael says the past 3 years were the worst of his life. There was more laughter. You know what, Emma? You were always nobody. You will always be nobody. Thanks for the entertainment, though. Bye. She hung up the phone, their laughter echoing in my ear. I was in the Harrington Global office. The phone had been on speaker, and Richard and Crawford had been listening. My face was as cold as ice, completely devoid of emotion. Did you get what you needed? Richard asked. Yes, I replied. Deploy the Madison package now. At 6 in the morning, on April 3rd, the gossip blog Elite Secrets published its main story. Instagram influencer Madison Sterling, the lies behind the likes. It was a full expose with all the receipts. It included her real driver's license, which showed she was 32, and medical records, legally obtained through medical billing audits, that showed all of her plastic surgeries. There were before and after photos. The article compared her claims of natural beauty to the surgical reality. Financial documents were included that showed her parents were funding 70% of her influencer lifestyle. There were also screenshots of her lying to brands about her age. The article went viral in under 2 hours. The phrase Madison Sterling exposed was trending at #1 on Twitter. TikTok videos began analyzing every photo for evidence of surgery. Beauty YouTubers created videos with titles like, Madison Sterling lied to us, then sponsors began to cancel their deals. Sephora cited a breach of contract and misrepresentation. Fashion Nova announced, we require honesty, you are terminated. Flat Tummy Tea stated, we are ending our partnership effective immediately. 12 more brands pulled out within 4 hours. At 9 in the morning, Prestige Modeling Agency sent her an email. Dear Madison, due to contractual violations regarding undisclosed procedures and age misrepresentation, we are terminating your contract effective immediately. Please return all agency property by the close of business today. Madison had no idea that I was the new owner of the agency. At 11 in the morning, she went on Instagram Live, crying, with her makeup running down her face. You guys, this is all lies. I am 26. I have never had surgery. This is photoshopped. Someone is trying to destroy me. The comments began to flood in. We have your driver's license, sis. Just admit it. You lied to us. Unfollow. 47,000 people watched her meltdown in real time. Her follower account started dropping like a rock. 486,000, 450,000, 420,000, 380,000. Madison sobbed on camera. Please, I do not know who is doing this, but please stop. Victoria called her. Get off Instagram now. You are making it worse. Mom, someone leaked everything. My medical records. How is that even legal? I do not care. Fix this. Within a week, the followers of Madison had dropped to 180,000. She had no sponsors, no agency, and the gossip blogs were writing follow-up articles about her on a daily basis. Her name had become a punchline. She called Victoria, desperate. Can you have Dad make this go away? Your father has his own problems. The Sterling Industries empire was beginning to crumble, and I was the one causing the tremors. From a secure location, Richard and I watched the news reports detailing the fallout. The first phase of my plan was complete, and Madison was officially canceled. After all, she was the one who called me trash and filmed my assault for her own sick entertainment. She was getting exactly what she deserved. So, who is on the list next? Richard asked, turning to me. Alexis, I replied. We will save Victoria and Jonathan for the grand finale in the boardroom. It was April 5th, and at the Sterling mansion, Michael and Alexis were deeply entangled in their own lives. They were living together and finalizing their wedding plans for May. Alexis's baby bump was growing more prominent each day. The prosthetic belly was a high-quality, convincing fake. While Victoria was busy fussing over the wedding details, Jonathan was secretly stressed about the state of the business, though he hid it well. That afternoon, an anonymous FedEx package was delivered. Michael took it to his study and opened it alone. Inside, he found a complete and detailed file on a woman named Alexander Marie Thompson, complete with a criminal record, mugshots from 3 different convictions, and documented proof of her faking pregnancies in the past. The file even included the very ultrasound image she had shown him, with digital metadata proving it had been purchased from an online stock photo site. There were also bank records that showed she had stolen $650,000 from her previous victims. Tucked inside was a single sheet of paper with a handwritten note. Michael, for 3 long years, you made me feel like worthless garbage. Now you get to know what it feels like to be the fool. You should check her belly. It is not real. You are welcome. A friend. Michael erupted from the study and stormed into the master bedroom, where Alexis was in the middle of getting dressed. "Who in the hell are you?" he roared, throwing the entire dossier at her feet. Alexis began to stammer. "Baby, I promise I can explain everything. Your name is not even Alexis," he yelled. "You are nothing but a con artist." She made a desperate attempt to run, but he grabbed her arm tightly. As he pulled her back, her sleeve snagged on a dresser drawer, and the prosthetic pregnancy belly tumbled out from under her dress. It was made of expensive silicone, but it was undeniably fake. It landed on the hardwood floor with a dull, heavy thud. Michael just stared at the silicone prop on the floor. "Get out of my house right now," he said, his voice dangerously low. Just then, Victoria and Jonathan rushed into the room, drawn by the shouting. They immediately saw the scattered papers of the file on the floor. Victoria let out a sharp gasp. Jonathan bent down and picked up the dossier, his eyes scanning the pages. "She is wanted by the police in California," he said in disbelief. Alexis frantically tried to grab her purse to leave, but Jonathan moved to block the door. "You are not going anywhere," he said firmly. "I am calling the police." At 11 in the morning, officers from the Greenwich Police Department arrived at the mansion. They were holding a warrant from California that had, at long last, been officially executed. As they put Alexis in handcuffs, she started screaming, "This is all a setup. Someone sent him that information. Someone is targeting our family." Victoria froze. "Who would even know about what happened with Madison?" she whispered. "First me, and now Alexis. Someone is definitely coming after us." Jonathan tried to wave her concerns away. "Do not be paranoid, Victoria. It is just a strange coincidence." But the look of doubt on his own face betrayed his words. Later that night, Michael sat all alone in his dark study, slowly drinking a glass of scotch. His entire world was falling to pieces around him. The 3-year marriage he was planning was a sham. His supposed friends still made jokes about the bet that started his relationship with me. He had a real daughter, our daughter Emma, whom he had completely abandoned. He had just discovered Alexis was a professional con artist, and on top of it all, his family's company was failing. It felt like everything he touched in his life turned to absolute garbage. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts until he found my old number, which was now disconnected. For a moment, he considered calling it, just to leave a message apologizing. Just then, Victoria walked in. "Do not even think about it," she snapped. "Maybe we were too hard on her," Michael mumbled. "And the baby, Grace. She is my daughter, and I just—" Victoria slapped him hard across the face. "That woman is gone. She is nothing to us now. You need to focus on what actually matters, which is saving this family's business." Michael looked up at her. "What if someone is targeting us because of what we did to Emma?" Victoria just laughed, a cruel, sharp sound. "Emma? Please. That pathetic little girl is probably dead in a ditch somewhere by now. She does not have the resources or the brains to come after a family like ours." I watched them through the hacked security feed, listening to every single poisonous word. My face was a mask of cold, hard ice. On April 6th, I continued to watch the Sterling family implode, all from the comfort of my security monitors. Richard turned to me and said, "The Sterlings are destroying themselves without any more help from you. Michael and Alexis are finished. Madison's entire career has been destroyed, and Victoria is in a full-blown panic about their money. You could stop all of this right here. You could take Grace, move to Paris, and just live your life. They are already suffering enough." I looked down at Grace, who was just 2.5 months old, as she smiled up at me. "Maybe you are right," I said softly. "Maybe getting revenge is not worth it. They are already tearing themselves apart. All I really want is peace. I want Grace to grow up far away from all of this ugliness." I actually began to draft plans to relocate our lives to London, since Harrington Global had several European offices. I could easily run the entire company from there. I would never have to see the Sterlings again, and I could just let them rot in the mess of their own making. For a brief moment, I genuinely thought about showing them mercy. But then, April 8th happened. A thick envelope of legal papers arrived at the main office of Harrington Global. It was a lawsuit, the Sterling family versus Emma Morgan, an emergency petition for custody of Grace. They were claiming that I had abandoned my daughter. They had fabricated witness statements from staff members they had paid off at the mansion, all saying I was mentally unstable. They even included an updated, fake psychiatric evaluation from Dr. Rothman. Their petition argued that the Sterling family could provide a stable, two-parent household. They claimed Michael was a reformed man who was seeking to make amends for his past. And they argued that a child's best interest was to be in a wealthy, stable Sterling home, not with a single mother. The emergency hearing was scheduled for April 11th, only 3 days away. The case was assigned to Judge Robert Whitmore of the Connecticut Family Court. Richard's face was grave. "Emma, this is extremely serious," he warned. "Whitmore is Old Money, Connecticut. He plays golf with Jonathan Sterling every weekend. He is completely biased toward traditional family structures. But I have evidence," I insisted. "I have proof of the assault, all the abuse. They are going to claim that all of your evidence was obtained illegally," Richard explained. "Without any admissible evidence, it is just going to be your word against theirs. In a Connecticut family court, they have the home court advantage." That realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. I have $2.3 billion in my name, and I could still lose my own daughter. Money does not always win in family court, especially when you know the judge is already compromised. My legal team of 5 of the top lawyers in the country gathered in my office. "We absolutely need Dr. Morrison's testimony about the abuse that happened at the hospital," one said. "She is terrified, so," another replied. "Testifying means she would be going against the very hospital that the Sterling family has donated millions to." "What about Rebecca Martinez?" I asked. "The nurse?" my lead counsel said, shaking his head. "Her testimony would be considered hearsay. She did not actually witness the assault herself. And the security footage from inside the mansion is illegally obtained," another lawyer added, "which makes it inadmissible in court." "So we have absolutely nothing?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. My lead counsel looked at me with honest, worried eyes. "We have your testimony, but they are going to paint you as a bitter, vindictive ex-daughter-in-law. And we already know that Judge Whitmore leans in their direction." On April 11th, we were at the Connecticut Family Court in downtown New Haven. I arrived with my legal team of 5. Across the aisle, the Sterling family sat with their team of 8 lawyers. The Sterling's lead lawyer stood up to begin. "Your Honor," he started, his voice smooth and confident, "this case is about the welfare of a child. Grace Sterling was born into a loving and supportive family. Her father, Michael Sterling, has made mistakes, as we all have, but he is now fully committed to being the father that she deserves. Her grandmother, Victoria Sterling, and her grandfather, Jonathan Sterling, are pillars of Connecticut society. They have the resources and the stability to provide her with an exceptional upbringing. The respondent, Emma Morgan, he continued, gesturing toward me, has demonstrated a pattern of erratic behavior. She abandoned her child with strangers while she has been seen entering and leaving various luxury hotels and corporate buildings. They were twisting my hard work building Harrington Global to make it look like I was involved in some kind of suspicious activity. My lawyer stood up to counter. Your Honor, this is a transparent attempt by an abusive family to further victimize my client. Emma Morgan was violently assaulted and then thrown out of the Sterling home during a blizzard with her 3-day-old infant. Objection, the Sterling's lawyer shouted. No evidence of any assault has been presented to this court. Sustained, the judge said immediately. Counsel, please stick to the facts and the evidence. A few minutes later, Victoria took the stand, dressed to look like the perfect grandmother in a Chanel suit and pearls, with a look of deep concern on her face. Your Honor, she began, her voice soft and caring, I loved Emma like she was my own daughter. We welcomed her into our home, despite her humble background. We tried our best to help her adjust to our family's lifestyle. When she had the baby, we were all just overjoyed, but then Emma became increasingly paranoid and accusatory. She started claiming that we were trying to steal Grace from her. We were only trying to help her. She left our home completely voluntarily in the middle of the night. We were all worried sick about her. Now we have discovered that we do not even know where she is living or what she is doing. Michael just wants to be a father to his little girl. My lawyer began his cross-examination. Ms. Sterling, you claim that Emma left your home voluntarily. Can you explain why a woman who was still recovering from major surgery would leave in the middle of a blizzard with a newborn baby? I do not know, Victoria said, shaking her head sadly. I told you she was acting completely irrationally. Did you, or did anyone else in your family, put your hands on Emma Morgan? He pressed. Absolutely not, she replied firmly. That is a vicious and hurtful lie. Then what about this? My lawyer asked, and he tried to show the video from Madison's Instagram feed. Objection, their lawyer yelled. That footage was obtained without any consent and has clearly been edited. Sustained, the judge ruled instantly. I will not consider any evidence that has been obtained illegally. Next, Madison testified she had clearly been coached and seemed subdued after her very public humiliation. Emma always resented our family, she said quietly. She was jealous of me, and she was jealous of our lifestyle. The night that she left, she was screaming at my mother and threatening all of us. We tried to calm her down, but she just ran out into the snow. I was scared for the baby. That is the only reason why I recorded it, to document her erratic behavior for Child Protective Services. Then Michael gave the performance of his entire life. He looked directly at the judge, with tears in his eyes. Your Honor, I have made some terrible mistakes. I was a bad husband. I completely neglected Emma. I am so ashamed of my actions, but I love my daughter. I want to be her father. I am in therapy now, and I am working on myself. My family can provide her with stability, a real home, and all the resources she will ever need. A future, he continued, his voice cracking. With Emma, I do not even know where she is living. How can she possibly care for Grace properly? Then, it was my turn to take the stand. I told the court the absolute truth. I told them about the bet, the constant abuse, the ambush at the hospital, and how I was thrown out into the snow. The Sterling's lawyer completely destroyed me on cross-examination. Miss Morgan, you claim that you were abused, but you have no evidence to support these claims. You have no police reports, no hospital records of this so-called assault, and no witnesses besides your friends who would naturally support your side of the story. Is it not true that you are simply a bitter ex-wife who is trying to keep a loving father away from his child? No, I said, my voice shaking. They threw me down the steps. I have footage of it. Footage that you obtained illegally by hacking into their private security system? He shot back. Objection, my lawyer called out. Overruled, the judge said flatly. Answer the question, Miss Morgan. I hesitated. Someone recovered it for me. So you are admitting it was obtained illegally? Judge Whitmore announced his decision. This is a very challenging case. Still, I have to put the child's best interests first. While I believe Miss Morgan is a loving mother, the absence of solid proof for her claims concerns me. On the other hand, the Sterling family has shown they have the means, stability, and a sincere wish to care for Grace. For these reasons, I am awarding temporary custody to Michael Sterling and his family, with a full 30-day evaluation period to follow. Miss Morgan will be granted supervised visits 2 times a week. My entire world collapsed. No, please. They brought Grace in from the waiting area. I sobbed as I clung to her. No, please do not take her away from me. Please. A social worker then had to gently pry Grace from my embrace. Victoria took her with a smirk on her face. Grace was crying, and reaching out for me, I fell to the floor in a heap. This felt even worse than being left in the snow, because now I had money, influence, and resources. I had everything, and I lost anyway. The entire system had let me down. On the steps of the courthouse, camera flashes went off all around us. The media was reporting on the story. Victoria carried Grace to the Sterling family car while Madison walked beside them, looking triumphant. Michael refused to even make eye contact with me. That evening, I was all alone in the Harrington Global penthouse suite, just staring at the empty crib that belonged to Grace. I made a call to Richard. I attempted to handle this the right way, legally, with civility, and by following the rules, but they still managed to win. They have taken my daughter. We will file an appeal. We will fight. No. My voice shifted, becoming cold and resolute. No more following their rules. No more participating in their games. You said that I am in control of the board. Well, I am flipping the entire board over. Arrange the contract meeting. I want every single one of them in that room. April 12th. Tomorrow. Emma, are you certain about this? They wanted a war? I will give them complete annihilation. Richard and I worked from midnight until 6 in the morning. I contacted Dr. Morrison. I need your testimony. I will give you my protection, please. She was in tears. I am so afraid. I am too, but we are going to do it regardless. Crawford located Madison's Instagram live stream from the hospital, which had not been deleted and was stored on Instagram servers, making it legally obtainable. My legal team filed an emergency motion presenting the new evidence. I did not get any sleep. I dressed in my suit of armor, a white Tom Ford suit, and hair the color of platinum. I applied the perfect shade of red lipstick. I gazed at my reflection in the mirror. It is time to finish this. April 12th, 2 in the afternoon. The Harrington Global main office, located in Midtown Manhattan on the 52nd floor. The Sterling family pulled up in their Lexus. Their Mercedes had been taken back, and they had replaced it with an older vehicle. They appeared smaller and less impressive. Jonathan's suit no longer fit him properly because of the weight he had lost from stress. Victoria's jewelry was obviously costume jewelry, not genuine. She had been forced to sell her real gems to pay for rent. Madison was not wearing a designer brand. Her hair was not professionally styled, and she seemed utterly drained. Michael looked hungover and beaten, yet they were all trying to project an air of confidence. This $75 million contract represented their last hope. Inside the elevator, Victoria spoke. Remember, we are Sterlings. They are old money, and they will show us respect for that. Jonathan, you just need to let me take the lead on the negotiations. We have to secure this contract, or we are completely ruined. Madison, who was looking at her phone, added, At least the issue with Emma is finally behind us. The judge awarded us grace. Michael remained silent, just staring down at the elevator floor. The doors of the elevator slid open on the 52nd floor. The view was stunning, with windows from floor to ceiling showing the Manhattan skyline, decorated with modern art, a clear display of wealth. The receptionist guided them toward a conference room with huge glass walls, a view overlooking Central Park, and a conference table that could seat 20 people. At the far end of the table, the chief executive officer's chair was turned around, facing the city. 8 board members dressed in expensive suits were already in their seats. Security personnel were positioned at the exits. A very large screen was mounted on the wall behind the chief executive officer's chair. The Sterling family took their seats on the opposite side of the table from the main chair. Jonathan coughed to clear his throat. We appreciate you giving us this opportunity. My voice interrupted him. Hello, Jonathan. The chair began to turn slowly. I was sitting there, a picture of complete power, with platinum blonde hair, a stylish white Tom Ford suit, red Louis Vuitton high heels, my grandfather's signet ring, red lipstick, and an ice-cold look on my face. Hello, Victoria, Madison, and Michael. Their reactions unfolded as if in slow motion. The color completely vanished from Jonathan's face. He stumbled back and fell into his chair. Victoria actually passed out. Madison managed to catch her, staring at me with a look of pure terror. Madison's jaw dropped. She seemed unable to comprehend what she was witnessing. Her phone slipped from her grasp and fell to the floor. Michael was completely frozen, his eyes wide with shock, unable to say a single word. The security guards moved to block the exits. Nobody was going to leave. Jonathan finally managed to speak. What is this? Is this supposed to be some kind of prank? I got up and slowly made my way around the table. My voice was calm but held a deadly tone. Please have a seat. We have a $75 million contract that needs to be discussed. Victoria came to, becoming hysterical. This is completely absurd. It cannot be you. You are a nobody. I am Chairwoman Emma Catherine Harrington, the Chief Executive Officer of Harrington Global Industries, and the only heir to the $2.3 billion empire of my grandfather, William Harrington. I motioned toward the portrait on the wall, which was the official photograph of William Harrington. And the reason you are here is because you submitted an application for a contract with my company. Michael finally managed to speak. This is not possible. How? How can I be in this position? Let me share a story with you. I pressed a button on the remote control. The screen located behind me came to life. The initial slide displayed footage from February 15th at 3 in the morning, showing me being thrown down the stairs of the Sterling estate, with the time clearly marked. Victoria shrieked, "Turn that off right now!" No, you are going to sit here and watch it. The video showed everything. Madison was live streaming. I was being dragged across the marble floors. There was blood on the ground. Victoria was ordering me to kneel. Security was pulling Grace away from me. I was thrown down the steps. My blood was on the snow, and the doors slammed shut. The entire boardroom fell silent. Even the executives, who were not aware of this, seemed utterly appalled. February 15th, 3 in the morning. You pushed me down those steps. At that very moment, I was just as you described, a nobody, a poor and powerless piece of trash. The following slide presented the death certificate of William James Harrington. The date of death was February 15th at 7 in the morning, just 4 hours later. My grandfather passed away from a heart attack right after he viewed the security footage of what you all did to me. His will designated me as the sole inheritor, and it became effective the moment he died. I paused to let the full weight of my words sink in. So, at 3 in the morning, when you tossed me out into that snow, I was a nobody. But as I lay on the ground and the time ticked closer to 7 in the morning, I became a billionaire. You simply were not aware of it yet. Victoria whispered, "Oh my goodness." Unaware that his wife had just come into a billion-dollar fortune, her in-laws and his mistress cast her out into the snow. That would make for quite a story, would it not? Now, let's talk about your current circumstances. The next slide displayed Jonathan Sterling's financial records, all showing negative balances. Sterling Industries is in debt for $83 million. However, it is no longer $83 million. As of 3 weeks ago, I purchased $75 million of that debt from your lenders at a reduced price. I am demanding full payment today. You have 48 hours to pay the entire amount, or I will take possession of every single one of your assets. Jonathan made an attempt to speak, but he was unable to. Oh, and there is this. The Federal Bureau of Investigation logo came into view. A series of emails that revealed Jonathan's theft from the pension fund. The Federal Bureau of Investigation was sent these documents at 9 this morning. You can anticipate charges by the end of the week. Next slide. The boutiques owned by Victoria Sterling, Sterling-style boutiques with 5 locations, all situated in properties that I own. Your eviction is effective as of today. The locks on the doors will be changed at 5 in the evening. You are also behind on your rent by $480,000. I am filing a lawsuit for the unpaid rent plus damages. And there is one last thing. The Internal Revenue Service logo appeared. The Internal Revenue Service was provided with evidence of $2.3 million in tax fraud yesterday. You should prepare for an audit. A picture of Madison wearing my mother's jewelry was displayed, and I am suing you directly for $5 million for the theft of my mother's heirloom jewelry. Victoria gasped and grabbed her chest. Next slide. Madison Sterling. Before and after images of her scandal were shown. Your career as a model is over. Your status as an influencer has vanished. But this is the part I enjoy the most. A video began to play, showing Madison's Instagram live broadcast from the hospital, the complete recording of her streaming my abuse. This was shared with the public, reaching 500,000 people. It is considered admissible as evidence. The Greenwich Police Department was given this footage this morning. Charges of assault have been filed. Madison burst into tears. Next up, Michael Sterling. The video of the college bet was played in its entirety. Every harsh word, every single laugh, every demeaning remark made about me. This will be sent to every major news organization at 6 in the evening today. Your theft of $3.8 million from Sterling's Industries has also been brought to the attention of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. But this is the detail that will truly affect you. The final slide. The custody dispute over Grace. New video footage was shown. A recording from Dr. Morrison's phone at the hospital, with clear audio of the threats and assault. Madison's Instagram Live, which is legally acceptable as a public broadcast. Sworn statements from 3 previous employees of the Sterling estate, whom I paid to come forward with the truth. An emergency motion was submitted this morning to the Connecticut Family Court. There is new evidence, a new judge, and a hearing has been set for tomorrow morning. You will not be seeing Grace ever again. Michael lunged at me from across the table. You monster! You have destroyed everything. The security team quickly subdued him and forced him to the ground. I did not even move a muscle. Michael was pinned to the floor, with security holding him down. You have wrecked my life. We provided you with everything. I leaned in close, my voice low so only he could hear. You never gave me a single thing. Our marriage was just a bet to you. For 3 years, you stood by while they tormented me. You walked out on your own daughter when she was just 3 days old. I was not the one who destroyed your life, Michael. You did that all by yourself. Victoria dropped to her knees, actually pleading. Please, we can make this work. We will give you whatever you want. I will apologize. There is nothing you have that I could possibly want. I walked over to her and looked down. You once called me garbage. You told me I was a nobody. You said I should be left out in the snow. But garbage does not run a $2.3 billion empire. Garbage does not bring down powerful families. You did not just toss out the trash, Victoria. I leaned in close. You threw away a queen. Jonathan, looking completely broken, made one final plea. The contract. Please, we have to have it. There is no contract. There never was one. This meeting was never about a business deal. It was about making you understand precisely who you ruined and who came back to ruin you. I picked up the remote control again. Oh, and there is one last thing. The large screen flickered, now showing a YouTube live stream. The viewer count read 4.2 million. This whole meeting has been broadcast live on my private YouTube channel. 4.2 million people just witnessed this entire exchange. The comments section exploded. Oh my God, she is a total queen. They are getting exactly what they deserve. This is the best revenge story I have ever witnessed. Emma Harrington is a legend. Madison's voice screeched. You cannot. That is illegal. We never agreed to be filmed. You should check the non-disclosure agreement you signed on your way in. Take a look at Clause 47, the one about media consent for business meetings. I held out the document she had signed without even glancing at it. You did not read it? I picked up that little trick from you. Always read what you sign. It was a direct reference to the day in the hospital when they made me sign divorce papers. Security guards then began to escort them from the room, and they were not being gentle. Victoria had to be physically dragged out. You will pay for this. We are going to sue. We will sue. Sue me with what money? You are bankrupt. Goodbye, Victoria. Madison was a crying mess. I am sorry. I am so sorry. Please. You recorded my most painful moment just for fun. You hoped I would become a viral joke. Well, congratulations, Madison. Now you are going viral too. Michael looked at me one last time. Emma, please, Grace. She is my daughter. No, she is my daughter. You are just the biological father who left her behind. You will never lay eyes on her again. The guards pulled him from the room. Jonathan simply walked out in silence. But a completely defeated man, his entire world was gone. I was left alone in the boardroom, gazing out at the Manhattan skyline. Richard came in. The stream is still going. We are at 5.8 million viewers now. I just nodded. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Dr. Morrison. Emergency custody hearing is set for tomorrow with new evidence. We will win. Grace is coming home. A genuine smile spread across my face for the first time in what felt like forever. Down on the street, the Sterling family walked out of the Harrington Global building into total mayhem. A crowd of 50 reporters swarmed them, cameras flashing relentlessly while they shouted questions. Is it true you left a baby in the snow? Did you really marry her for a bet? Are the authorities taking you in? Agents from the Federal Bureau of Investigation were already there. Jonathan Sterling, Michael Sterling. You are both under arrest for embezzlement and wire fraud. They were placed in handcuffs as their rights were read to them. Victoria and Madison had not been arrested yet, but they were completely surrounded by the press. Madison's phone would not stop buzzing with hateful notifications. Victoria did her best to cover her face. On Twitter, 3 topics were trending across the globe. Number 1 was Sterling family exposed, number 2 was Emma Harrington, and number 3 was billion-dollar revenge. The very next morning, we had the emergency custody hearing. Between Dr. Morrison's testimony, the recording from the hospital, and the live stream Madison herself had created, the judge made a swift decision. Full custody was immediately restored to me. The Sterling family was denied any visitation rights, while their criminal cases were ongoing. The moment they brought Grace into the room, I just held her tight and wept. She was safe, finally truly and completely safe. 6 months passed, and on October 15th, I found myself on the cover of Forbes magazine. Emma Harrington, the chief executive officer who came from nothing. Harrington Global's stock had climbed by 40%. We had successfully entered 3 new markets. I was sitting in my office while Grace, who was now 8 months old, played on a small mat next to my desk. Rebecca stopped by. "You actually did it." "We did it," I corrected her. The fate of the Sterling family was set in stone. Jonathan was found guilty and sentenced to 12 years in a federal prison for embezzlement. Victoria was on house arrest, completely broke, and had to take a job in retail to pay off her debts to the Internal Revenue Service, living in a tiny studio apartment. Madison avoided criminal charges, but her professional life was over. She ended up working in a call center, handling customer service. Her Instagram account had plummeted to just 12,000 followers. She had lost 97%. Michael accepted a plea bargain, which sent him to prison for 7 years. He also officially gave up all his parental rights to Grace. Alexis, whose real name turned out to be Alexandra Thompson, was convicted out in California and received a 15-year sentence for numerous counts of fraud. People sometimes ask if I regret any of it, if getting even was truly worth it. I just look at my daughter Grace, who is so happy and healthy, growing up in a home where she knows she is loved and protected. I think of the $50 million I gave to shelters for women and services for victims of abuse. I think of all the women who contacted me to tell me their own stories of survival and resilience. The first video, the one of the attack, has now been seen 127 million times. The Sterlings became an international example of what happens when karma catches up with you. Their viciousness was put on display for the whole world. Was it worth it? Absolutely. Every last second of it. Let me share something with you. I have learned a lesson I desperately wish someone had shared with me back when I was lying helpless in the snow, believing I was worthless. Pain does not destroy everyone. Sometimes, if you have enough strength and you refuse to give up, that pain can shape you into something tougher than diamonds, something that cannot be broken. When they pushed me down those frozen stairs, I was shattered, bleeding, and certain I was a nobody. But I was completely wrong. I was never a nobody. I was just someone who had not yet discovered her own strength. The media focus after the live stream was overwhelming for weeks. It was impossible to go anywhere without someone recognizing me. Some called me a hero. Others called me vengeful, saying that what I did was beneath me and that I should have just taken the high road. To all those people, I have a simple question. What would you have done? Would you have just forgiven and forgotten after they tossed your infant daughter into a snowstorm? Would you have been forgiving when they used a rigged legal system to try and take your child away? Would you have offered mercy to people who never showed you any? I doubt it. There's a big difference between revenge and justice. Revenge is simply about causing pain because someone pained you first. Justice is about ensuring those people can never harm another person again. What I delivered was justice. The Sterlings did not just target me, it was their way of life. Once my story was out, 7 other women stepped forward with their own experiences with that family. There were women Michael had been with before me, women who were employed at Sterling Industries. All of them had been wronged and forced into silence. Every last one of them reached out to thank me for being brave enough to reveal what they had endured. In that moment, I knew I had done the right thing. I launched the Harrington Foundation for Abuse Survivors, starting it with $50 million of my own money. We provide legal assistance, therapy, safe places to live, and job training for individuals getting away from abusive environments. In just 6 months, we have assisted more than 2,000 people. My daughter Grace will be raised to understand that when someone tries to make you feel insignificant, you are faced with 2 options. You can either accept what they say, or you can show them how wrong they are. I made the choice to prove them wrong. 1 year to the day after that meeting, on April 12th, I called a press conference. The room was packed with reporters and cameras. 1 year ago today, I was in a boardroom, facing the people who tormented me for 3 years. People who left me and my newborn daughter in a snowstorm. People who attempted to take my child using a broken legal system. Today, I stand here as Chief Executive Officer of a flourishing business, as the mother of a joyful and healthy little girl, and as a person who would not allow cruelty to be her story. I get asked a lot if I have regrets about my actions, if it was all worth it, and I need to make something perfectly clear. What I pursued was not revenge, it was accountability. The Sterling family did not lose their fortune because I was spiteful. They lost it because they were criminals. Jonathan Sterling stole money from his employees' retirement funds. Victoria Sterling cheated on her taxes to the tune of millions. Michael Sterling was guilty of fraud. Madison Sterling attacked me and streamed it to 500,000 viewers. I did not ruin them. They ruined themselves. My only role was to turn on the lights so the world could see. For anyone listening who feels like they are in their own personal snowstorm, in a moment of complete hopelessness, I need you to listen to me. You are not trash. You are not a nobody. You are not defined by the hateful words someone used to try and crush your spirit. You have power. You have value. And you are more than enough. So get back on your feet, brush yourself off, and let them see who you really are. The entire room broke out in applause. After it was over, I went back to my penthouse apartment. Grace was there with her nanny, happily playing with her building blocks. The moment she saw me, a huge smile lit up her face, and she held her little arms out to me. I scooped her up and held her tightly, just breathing in that wonderful baby scent. "You know something, sweet girl," I whispered to her. "Your mom came very close to being broken, but she found a way to stand up again. And someday, when you are old enough to understand, I am going to tell you this entire story. I will teach you that it does not matter what other people say, because you are the one who decides who you will be, not them, only you." Grace just giggled and pulled on my hair. I let out a laugh, and for the first time in years, it felt real and completely unrestrained. Rebecca came by later that evening. We sat together on my balcony, looking out over the lights of Manhattan. Sipping wine, she asked me, "Do you ever think about that night? The one in the snow?" I admitted that I think about it every single day, but probably not in the way you imagine. The pain is gone now. For me, it represents the turning point when my life completely changed. It was the moment I went from being a victim to becoming a survivor. That is just incredible, you know? I just shook my head. There is nothing special about me. I am just a woman who made a choice not to be defeated. But that is exactly what makes you so special. We settled into a comfortable quiet, gazing at the sparkling city lights below. "What does the future hold for you?" Rebecca asked. I took a moment to consider her question. To be honest, I am not completely sure. My focus is on continuing to expand the company, helping more people with the foundation, and raising Grace to be a strong and compassionate person. I think that might just be enough. That is more than enough. You have already made a huge difference in the lives of so many people. Later that evening, long after Rebecca had gone home, I found myself standing in Grace's nursery, just watching her sleep. She looked so serene and perfect, the picture of innocence. My mind drifted to my own mother, Catherine, and how she had escaped her own father's controlling nature to build a life for herself. I remembered her working 3 jobs just to provide for me, and how her pride prevented her from asking for help, even when she was desperate. Then I thought of my grandfather, William, and the 2 years he spent watching me suffer, his hands tied by legal advice and careful planning. He absolutely despised seeing someone he cared for being mistreated. In the end, pride had ruined them both. They could never overcome the stubbornness that stood between them and their love for each other. I was determined not to repeat that same mistake. "I make you a promise," I whispered to my sleeping daughter. "You will spend every day of your life knowing how deeply you are loved. And you will learn that needing help is not a sign of weakness, but a true display of strength. You will understand that you should never tolerate cruelty from anybody, regardless of who they are. If someone ever tries to diminish you, I want you to remember the story of your mother, who was left in the snow but rose to become a queen." Grace moved slightly in her sleep, her tiny hand clenching into a small fist. A smile spread across my face as I gently kissed her on the forehead. The next day was packed with a board meeting. The following week marked the launch of a new branch of Harrington Global, dedicated to ethical business and employee well-being. And in the next month, our foundation was set to open 3 brand new shelters. But for tonight, I was simply Emma, just a mother looking at her sleeping child, a woman who had been through the worst and emerged more powerful. And in that moment, that was everything. 5 years have passed since that night. Today is Grace's very first day of kindergarten. She chose her own purple dress, and her dark pigtails are bouncing as she jumps with excitement. "Mommy, do you think the other children will like me?" she asks while I am driving her to school. "Oh, sweetheart, they are going to absolutely love you. All you have to do is be yourself. That is always more than enough. That is what you always tell me. Exactly what I always tell you." I see her dash into the school building, so full of courage and light, and my heart feels like it could burst. These days, Harrington Global has a valuation of $4.1 billion. Our company has grown to include renewable energy, ethical manufacturing, and developing affordable housing. With every choice I make, I consider the type of world I am building for Grace to inherit. Our foundation has assisted over 15,000 individuals in leaving abusive environments. We have also financed 3 different documentary series that shed light on domestic violence. We have actively campaigned for better legal protections for survivors of abuse within the family court system. The Sterlings have become a faint memory from the past. Jonathan got out of prison last month, having completed his entire sentence. At 67 years old, He now works as a sales associate in a hardware store. Word got back to me that he actually applied for a position at Harrington Global. His application was rejected. Victoria, now 73, remains under house arrest and continues to work in retail. She will spend the remainder of her life paying back her debt to the Internal Revenue Service. Madison is now 42, a fact she would surely despise me for sharing. Her job now consists of working the night shift at a diner that is open 24 hours. She has no online presence, no adoring followers, and no fame. She is living a completely ordinary life, which for her is the ultimate punishment. 2 months ago, Michael was released from prison, having served 5 years of his 7-year term. He made one attempt to get in touch with me, requesting to see Grace. I instructed my lawyer to issue a cease and desist letter. He relinquished all of his parental rights, so he is entitled to nothing. I have heard that he is employed as a warehouse manager someplace in New Jersey and is engaged to be married again. For his new fiancée's sake, I hope he has changed, but I have my doubts. Alexis remains in prison with another 7 years left on her sentence. And as for my own life, I am engaged. His name is David Collins, and he works as a civil rights lawyer. Our paths crossed at a fundraising event for my foundation. He is aware of my entire past, and he loves me despite it all. What matters most is that he loves Grace as if she were his own daughter. After I shared the whole story about the Sterlings and what they did, he told me, "Do you know what I see when I look at you? I do not see a victim or even just a survivor. I see a woman who would not allow cruelty to become her identity. I see pure strength." It was in that very moment that I knew he was the man I could trust with my heart. We plan to get married next spring in a small ceremony with only our family and closest friends. Grace has been chosen as the flower girl and has already meticulously planned her whole outfit. There are still nights when I have dreams about being in the snow. I dream about the biting cold, about hearing Grace's cries grow fainter, and about the certainty that we were about to die. However, I no longer wake up in a panic. Now, I just get out of bed, walk to Grace's room, and watch her sleep for a moment to remind myself that we made it. In fact, we did more than just survive. We flourished. Just last week, a young woman visited me at my office. She had contacted me through the foundation. Her husband's family had abused her and then cast her out with nothing, a situation identical to my own. Through her tears, she said, "I saw what you went through. When I saw what you accomplished, it made me think that maybe I could do it too." I took her hand in mine and replied, "You most certainly can. And this time, you will not be on your own." We arranged for her to stay in one of our shelters and put her in contact with a good lawyer. We also set her up with therapy sessions and assisted her in filing a report with the police. A couple of months passed, and then she sent me a picture of her and her 2 children, all of them smiling brightly in their new apartment. Underneath the photo, she had written, "We are finally free. Thank you for making me believe this was possible. That is the real reason I did everything. It was never about revenge. It was for moments just like that one. It was for every single woman who needed proof that you can be left for dead in the snow and still rise up to be a queen." Today's date is April 12th, which marks the anniversary of that intense boardroom meeting. I make it a point to do something meaningful on this day every year. This year, I am giving a speech at a TEDx conference on the subjects of trauma, resilience, and justice. I am standing on the stage, looking out at an audience of 5,000 people. When they left me in the snow that night, I start my speech. I was certain I was going to die. I believed I was a nobody. I thought it was what I deserved. It turns out I was mistaken about everything. Not everyone is broken by pain. Sometimes, if you have enough strength and you refuse to surrender, pain can shape you into a version of yourself that is stronger than you ever thought possible. I am not extraordinary. I am not a superhero. I am simply a woman who would not accept defeat. For anyone listening who is facing their own personal storm, their own moment of hopelessness, I want you to know that this is not the end of your story. This is the start of a new chapter. Stand up, brush the snow from your shoulders, and reveal to the world your true self. Because people who are considered garbage do not build empires. They do not transform lives. They do not motivate thousands to discover their own inner power. You are not worthless. You are not insignificant. You possess incredible strength, and someday you will reflect on this time and see that it was the very moment you became indestructible. The audience gives me a standing ovation that goes on for 3 full minutes. Afterward, hundreds of attendees form a line just to speak with me, to tell me their own stories, and to express their gratitude. They wanted to let me know that they are standing up too. Later that evening, I am at home with Grace and David. The three of us are preparing dinner together, keeping it simple with pasta, which is Grace's favorite meal. Grace, stirring the pasta sauce with great care, asks, "Mommy, why do so many people always want to talk with you?" I tell her, "Because Mommy's story helps them realize something very important. And what is that? That whatever life throws at you, you are the one who chooses what it signifies. You are the one who determines who you will become. Like how you became a queen?" I laugh and say, "Something just like that, sweetheart." David leans over and kisses my temple, adding, "The queen who emerged from the snow." "I really like the sound of that," I reply. Once dinner is finished and Grace is tucked into bed, David and I are sitting out on the balcony, in the same spot where Rebecca and I sat years before. He asks me, "Do you have any regrets about how public everything became? The live stream? The constant media attention?" I consider his question for a moment. Honestly, I do not. The reason is that it was never solely about me. It was for every single person who had ever been made to feel worthless. For everyone who had been discarded like trash. My goal was to show them that it is possible to recover from that kind of treatment. You can do more than just get by. You can actually flourish. You have impacted so many lives. They were the ones who changed their own lives. All I did was show them that it could be done. We fall into a peaceful silence, holding each other's hands and looking out at the city. My thoughts drift back to the Emma of 5 years ago, the one who was broken and bleeding in the snow, absolutely certain her life was over. If I had the chance to go back in time and speak to her, I would tell her, "Just hold on for a little while more. Help is on the way. 5 years from this moment, you will find true and genuine happiness. Your daughter, Grace, will be healthy and well. You will have found love. You will have made a difference in the lives of thousands of people. The entire Sterling family will fade into nothing more than a distant, unpleasant memory. Remember that the snow cannot last forever. The spring is sure to follow." Just then, my phone vibrates. It is an email from the foundation. It is from another woman who is seeking help, someone else who is prepared to break free from her own personal storm. I reply to her without hesitation, providing her with resources and reassuring her that she is not by herself in this struggle. Because this is the entire reason for my journey. It was never about getting even, or even really about justice. It was about ensuring that no other person would have to endure lying in the snow, injured and alone, feeling completely worthless. The purpose was to demonstrate to the world that you can be discarded like trash and still rise to become a queen. And if my own story, with all its pain and hardship, can empower even one more person to find the courage to stand up and defend themselves, then it was all worth it. And in the end, Every single moment of hardship was worth it. I gaze out at the Manhattan skyline, my eyes drawn to the Harrington Global building that carries my grandfather's name, and I see the city that has become my kingdom. I think of William, watching me from somewhere, and I hope he is proud. My thoughts turn to my mother, Catherine, who taught me the greatest courage is often walking away from what pains you. I picture little Grace, asleep in her room, completely safe and adored, never needing to doubt her own value. And I think of myself, Emma Catherine Morgan Harrington. I was the girl they treated like a nobody, who became the woman who commands everything. They cast me out in the snow when I had nothing. They had no idea I was on the verge of inheriting $1 billion empire. They never imagined I would survive. They never believed I would come back stronger. But their biggest miscalculation was this: trying to destroy someone can sometimes make them invincible. I refuse to be seen as a victim. I am not merely a survivor. I am a woman who was shattered but would not remain broken. I am a mother who will ensure her daughter knows her worth is defined by her own heart, not by others. I am a chief executive officer who built a commercial empire on the bedrock of fairness and justice. I am a philanthropist who transforms past pain into present purpose. I am the queen who was born from the snow. And if you are listening to this, if you feel lost in your own winter storm right now, convinced that you are insignificant, I have something to tell you. You are mistaken. You are important. You are incredibly strong. You are worthy. And your time to rise will come. So get back on your feet. The snow always melts. Your kingdom is waiting for you to claim it. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of your own strength, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Drop a comment below telling me, what would you have done in Emma's shoes? And remember, this content was carefully researched, crafted, and edited by hand to bring you not just a story, but a meaningful lesson. Your support helps us create more stories that inspire and empower. See you in the next one.